What is going on, y'all? Welcome to 8 Cubes with Gerry Thompson, Magic the Gathering legend, once again filling in for Lambie series. I don't want people to blame Lambie for this one. I'm moving. I was super busy. I couldn't make our normal time. Gerry was generous enough to help me out with this one, so thank you so much for being here. We're going to start with Marvel Snap's newest card, Prodigy. 3/4. If this card is in the back row, copy the text of the card directly in front of it.
Powerful text, certainly, but also high opportunity cost on that text as well. And it is very strange in that it's basically telling you to copy the text of like a cheaper card, and I don't know exactly the most powerful thing you can do with it. Like if you get two surges going, that's pretty powerful, but either you surge into the Prodigy or you play a Wasp, my favorite. But other than that, it's like you don't want to play your Silver Surfer and then play something behind it and then play a Prodigy. That kind of defeats the purpose, right? Like you could also just play those things ahead of the Surfer and then the Surfer probably pumps them too. So weird card. But like I said, powerful text might be worth the hoops to jump through. I'm just going to kind of wait and see. I don't have a ton of, big revelations in regards to this one, but people do seem excited about it.
There are a couple things that come to mind in terms of where I'd want to play this, but before that, I want to address the bit about like the opportunity cost here. One of the things I thought was fascinating about 4-cost Captain Carter was that because she was a front row card, there was sort of inherent conflict between her cost and the ability to play her the way her text wanted you to be played to get her into the front row, right? And so there's this similar thing going on with Prodigy where like typically your bigger stuff is going in the back row. That's like the idea because you're playing it later. So the reason this wouldn't be happening is because you're playing a deck that just plays a lot of small stuff, which brings me to the packages that make sense for me with Prodigy. He's kind of a can you take up space and then remove it merchant. So obviously Sam Wilson and Kitty Pryde come to mind, but Jeff, Rocket and Groot, things that move that will allow you to manipulate the spaces on the board to get your maximum Prodigy output. That stuff seems quite valuable. The cards that come to mind with him for me are like Surge, Galacta, Gwenpool. That's already kind of a package of stuff I'm interested in copying. Elsa Bloodstone, pretty interesting if I can copy it. I feel like I want to be playing some sort of Sam Wilson Kitty Pryde deck with like as many of those cards that I just named as possible. So he's always just doubling up on something good.
I could see that. The one concern that I have, I guess, is when you are prodigying something like Elsa or Galacta, those are cards that give you value turn over turn, which getting that set up in place may take some time as well, which might leave you only having the final turn to potentially take advantage of it, which is kind of worrisome. So I think Prodigy might be a thing that ends up being a little bit stronger with a thing that is more powerful in a small burst, something like Gwenpool that you mentioned.
Moving on to Surge, who has, I really feel bad about this, surged into the metagame. Yeah. With
I quit.
A remarkable showing in her first week. This is a card that I think is a card they hit basically dead on. It's a card people are excited to play. It's a card people are playing a lot of, and it's a card that is probably not broken, and people are not immediately calling for nerfs for it. And I feel like whenever those things are all true, this is a good hit for them in terms of balance. And like that basically means that if they changed anything about it, probably one of those things change.
The most interesting aspect to me about this card is that her output is very difficult to quantify. Like you can look at how many buffs did I get per game, how much energy did I save, but also what is the opportunity cost in having to play a 2/2 versus something at the 2-drop slot that is a little bit more powerful. And I think both playing with it and against it, it feels good. It feels fun and cool. But at the end of it, you still don't know, like, oh, did Surge win me this game? Did Surge cause me to lose this game even? Like, you never really know the answer to that. But because everyone's just kind of having fun with it, They don't even think to really ask that question.
I have a half-formed thought that I'm going to ask you to fully form for me if possible. I think that Surge is a great design because she explicitly tells you to stop putting tech cards in your deck. Stop doing this turn 6, I'm going to Shang-Chi your stuff because it'll mess up your engine. How do they do more things like that? What is it? What is the aspect of Surge as an engine that makes her specifically not work with those kind of things? And how is that going to be able to be repeatable? Because for the first time in a very long time, there is a cost reduction card that is not just doing a Sarah impression.
Yeah, I think that the best way to do that is kind of the way that Surge implemented, where it's like, do something to the top of your deck and give you a bonus if you just play it the next turn. Maybe you have that 1 turn window to play it or it goes away. Whereas things like Sarah are definitely telling you to have this explosive final turn, right? And even with something like Hit Monkey, where it's just like, oh, play a bunch of spells or whatever. Well, you're still incentivized to like wait as much time as you possibly can, because in theory, you're going to have more energy, more cards to play. You're going to have more agency over where you distribute this power to on the final turn. And that is typically the same time frame in which you want to play the tech cards, because your opponent has deployed the things that you now want to answer. So I guess it is very much just like have things that reward you for just playing your cards out. Maybe a thing that rewards you for having no cards in hand, right? Like then you get like a big bonus.
Yeah, like how do we do more of this? How do they get more things like this into the game? Because when I think about the things people hate the most in current Marvel Snap, number one with a bullet is just like Tech Thanos. Just Tech Thanos. Everyone hates it. It's very annoying. And I think that that kind of thing is the kind of thing that cards like this can push against. I just worry that Surge is such a specific design space, like, because it's occupying so much of the play this card, get a bonus. What other bonuses can they do? Like, what are they supposed to do? Can they make a Surge that's just power? Can they make a Surge that's just energy? Like, can you do that? Is that legal? Would people buy that? I feel like Surge but power is like kind of cool, kind of busted, honestly. And Surge but energy is weird and interesting, at least.
I mean, this is the 2-cost version. We don't have a 1-cost version of this thing. You could also key it off of just total cost as well, right? It's just like maybe it only affects 3s and less, so then that limits the cards that you can play in your deck, and that coincidentally also invalidates a lot of the tech cards from working with it too. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that you could do in a smaller setting, but certainly you don't want a bunch of cards that are just doing the exact same Surge thing. That gets kind of boring, kind of repetitive, maybe also very strong when you put them all in the same deck. Who knows?
Yeah, it's just like I can't figure out how to do a second thing that functions in this way. Because like the problem with like the idea of you had of like it only works on 3s or less. It's like, okay, but that's still supplementing a tech card, right? In much the same way that like Iron Patriot, not technically a card that goes with a lot of tech cards, but functionally goes with a lot of tech cards because you play the card you got and then the Shang-Chi. And so you end up with like this whole awkward thing where other cost reductions supplement the ability to play Shang-Chi, even if it's not directly affecting Shang. So like I want something that pushes people away from hoarding all of their shit, if possible.
Yeah, so the Hellbent notion, the having no cards in hand thing, I think that's good. I think if you're worried about, okay, I play 3 drops and less plus a Shang-Chi, then okay, make it odds evens. Or just like odds specifically, right?
Yeah, that would be interesting. But yeah, like the one I like is like, what about like turn 5, 2 or less cards in hand kind of thing, like a trigger that requires you to like not be hoarding cards in hand for turn 6.
I mean, kind of. There is Strong Guy for that.
No. He's one where it's like you get cards in hand, they're all cheap, you play them all, and then you have nothing, right? I want a card that's like doing Strong Guy, but on turn 5. So it says you can't have these cards on turn 6.
Well, if your hand has no cards except for a Shang-Chi, that still works though, right? Maybe I'm
yeah, but like you probably wouldn't like. I don't want to make it explicitly not work with it. I want to push people away from doing it. You can put Shang-Chi in your Surge deck. You can totally do that. It's totally fine. Like, it still works to supplement some of the time. 100% fine. What I want is to just sort of subtly push people towards this kind of stuff, more straightforward shipbuilding than shooting other people's ships with cannons, so to speak.
Yeah, obviously it's not just a Shang-Chi problem, right? Like there are plenty of other attack cards out there that are also kind of annoying to play against, but if you wanted to target something specifically, it would be like, you know, some undercosted thing, say like a 2/7 that whenever a card is destroyed, this loses its power.
That's kind of interesting.
It just like tells you to not play with Shang-Chi and probably don't play anything that is Shang-Chi-able.
Moving on to Esme. God, I'm never going to pronounce this right. Cuckoo, which is apparently how I'm supposed to pronounce it.
Oh,
my chat, everyone in my comments gets on me about this because I call her Cuckoo. And then they're like, no, it's not that. It's Cuckoo. And then they're like, no, it's not that. It's Cuckoo. I don't know how to pronounce this, so I'm going with Cuckoo. That's what we're going with. Esme Cuckoo, 3/4, makes a 3/4 in your hand that is a copy of a card in your deck, and is easily best in slotted negative, and not really anywhere else, in large part because her release at the same time as Surge has brought a, you ready for this? Surge in Mobius's play rate.
Bro, I already quit.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why you're still here.
You don't pay me enough for this.
I'm
gonna quit again.
Anything. I
know.
You live in my basement. You live in my basement. You get paid in being let out of my basement.
No, you don't even let me do that. Anyway.
Look, it's a very well-furnished basement. Look at all the stuff you have.
That's it, though. It's actually just like a vast wasteland around this.
No, it's like what you have behind you is like a cardboard with paint on it that looks like a background, and then the rest of it is the wasteland. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I want to go play with my stuff, but I just get like roadrunnered, slam into the canyon.
Yes, that's exactly how it works.
Anyway, Esme, good in theory in decks that would play Victoria hand. Like, wow, wouldn't this card be pretty good in a Victoria hand Wiccan deck? Maybe with a Gore for a high roll power spike or whatever. That thing doesn't really exist, unfortunately. But I did enjoy those decks. Maybe there will be some time when those things can come back, and that would be cool. But yeah, in the meantime, I feel like this is mostly just a negative card. In theory, you could play her in like some mid-rangey deck with like an Iron Man and a Gore, and just have that high roll. But the best way to do that is just play the negative stuff. So
yeah, I feel like that's just worst case scenario for me with a new card, because I already get annoyed that negative can limp into so many games. And now it gets to limp into like infinitely more games. Because like, oh, I played Esme, I got my Mr. Negative. Well, now I have negative on turn 4. Oh, I played Esme, I got my Gore, and now I'm copying stuff. It's just like, I don't know what percentage of games this is happening. It's probably not a huge percentage, but it's just more. And so now with Gore already in the deck, it got to limp into so many more games. More and more and more and more and more. And I kind of feel like at this point, if Mobius just didn't exist or wasn't played, Mr. Negative would kind of run roughshod over everything. I think he's that good right now.
It is pretty solid. I was even playing it myself. I had a buddy of mine message me about this card where it's like, is this good? Where are you playing it? And I was like, I'm playing it in negative because in theory, if you don't draw negative, this allows you to still win some of those games. And immediately he was like, oh, I love broken Mr. Negative games. I'm in. And then I haven't heard from him. So hopefully that's going well. I don't know.
Well, it gives you more broken Mr. Negative games, and it lets you limp in the games where that's not happening, and that's probably just worth putting in your deck, because it's not like you're not going to win when you play Mr. Negative anyway, so just optimize for the games where that's not happening, I suppose.
Word of warning, though, the first game I played, I had Psylocke into negative, I snapped on 2, my opponent snapped me on 3, and it's just like...
Yep. Wonder what that is.
Yeah, word to the wise, you might think that maybe my opponent is just not very smart, but that might be true. But realistically, what it comes down to is Marvel Snap players do not bluff. They do not bluff. And typically, if you snap them, you play Psylocke, that's pretty obviously a negative, right? And if they're snapping you, it's Mobius. It's not anything but Mobius. They're never going to be like, oh, yeah, play a Hope Summers. Snap your ass. You know, like, no chance. It's Mobius. Just run. Get out. No one bluffs.
Oh, wow. That was my Owen Wilson. Wow.
How many times are you going to make me quit in one episode, man? Damn.
I mean, do you want the keys to your door or not? Okay? Do you want to get the keys to your door?
Fool me once, fool me 10 times. That's about where we're at. So
it's true. I'll never give you the keys to the door.
Oh, I know. We're in the acceptance phase.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Prodigy at 3-4, Esme at 3-4, and whether or not either of them are safe to move to 3-5 and why. I think it's already pretty clear that these are cool cards that they probably want people playing because they're cool, but also that as soon as you put them at 3-5, they become like ubiquitous and annoying. And I guess I just wanted to try to drill down on why the hell 3-5 is such an important stat line.
Because there's not a lot of depth of numbers in the 3-cost slot, honestly. I think that if there were more 3-5s, if there were even like more 3-6s, you know, if there was more variety, then it wouldn't feel like such a big deal to move a thing up a power. Because I don't know, I do think that 3-cost is even more important in this regard in terms of like, well, what if my 2-cost thing goes down a power, up a power? Like, how much does that actually move the needle? And especially when you get to like 4, 5s, and 6s, 1 power is like a rounding error in a lot of instances compared to the depth and variety of cards that you can play in that spot. But 3 is just, 3-4 is good. 3-5 is like, oh, damn, that's generous, right? And then you don't get much past that. So anytime you're in 3-5, that's the upper echelon, and things like Esme and Prodigy, it's like they have strong effects. And Esme's is, all right, if I roll my Iron Man, that's a pretty strong thing. And that could potentially win you the game on its own. You should probably pay an opportunity cost for that. And I think the same is probably going to be true of Prodigy. Like, if you 3-5 him with this ability to do a potentially very strong thing, what is the cost of actually putting it in your deck? Like, you just roll it out on 5. Who cares?
Then why the hell is Copycat a 3-5? That's my
Good
counter
question.
argument. Like,
well, that's the thing, is that like Nocturne was a 3-5, and it was very quickly like, okay, yeah, this is too generous. And I still think Copycat is sort of a holdover from that. I mean, Copycat's interesting where in theory it can be a downside. And it does sort of have downside text, but most of the time it is not. But if you hit your opponent's like Kitty Pride or whatever, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the cost I am paying. It just happens so very rarely.
It turns out that people play good cards in their decks a lot of the time.
And there's in stuff, I mean, like, you can hit a Blade or a Deathlock or whatever in theory, but like those things are not super popular either. I think Copycat feels more like a downside when there are these high synergy decks being played.
Yeah, but also like the downside there is just you didn't draw a card, right? Like, you still, like, you're never going to be like, oh, you know, my Copycat was Carnage and I played it, right? Because you're just not going to play it. So the downside is very often, like, at most costing you a card, which in another game might be meaningful, but in Marvel Snap, you're not always playing all of your cards anyway. So a lot of the time, her downside isn't even, like, realized beyond, I had to play a slightly worse 3-drop on turn 3 instead, right? Like, I had to play one of my other 3s instead of her.
Well, what if you don't have multiple 3s? I mean, I've had games where I've copycatted a Blade and then just been like, oh, I guess I have to play a 2-on-3 or something.
Right.
And
like, but again, like, that's just a downside in the sense of like opportunity cost. You're losing something, but it's not like huge.
It's not huge, but it's like, that's why you get that 1 extra power in the vast majority of your other games. Whereas you make Prodigy a 3-5, there is no downside. If ever on turn 3, you're like, oh, I don't really have the setup to actually make this Prodigy work, you just play it. You still get a 3-5.
See, I think that just wouldn't happen. I think Marvel Snap players simply wouldn't play it as a 3-5. They would always hold the Prodigy instead. They were like, this could be a bigger card later.
I I have felt that. I don't think it would be to that degree, but like I have felt that to some degree where I think Shadow King is the most common one where it's like you don't have a 2, and I also see that you are not going to be able to really weave this in on a future turn, nor do I feel like you are constricted by board slots, and people are still so reluctant to play it out.
I think at
I'll just cast
2,
it.
at 2/2, I care a lot less about it. But giving up on 5 points of power is a huge thing. Where like giving up
That's
on
why I
2
think people
is
aren't
like,
going to do it.
yeah.
I think they'll just play out the Prodigy at that point, even at 3/4.
Marvel Snap has always been a game sort of defined by packages. What is your favorite little package to play in decks right now?
Kitty and literally anything, and it's been that way for quite a while.
She's such a fun card, man. Taking game actions and like triggering a bunch of Quirion Dryads. That's all I really want out of any game. And Kitty Pride is like a factory of like, look at all these little green ticks I'm getting on my cards. There's so many different ticks that happen every turn. She's a factory of that. I'm with you.
It's like I want my draw to be kind of bad so that I'm able to weave in Kitty a lot. You know, it's like when your draw is super good and you don't even use the Kitty, I'm just like, girl, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
She's awesome. Do you think we could buff her? I know buff nerf is later in the show, but I do want to ask, do you think she could be 1/2 again, maybe?
Yes, but why? Because it's not like her power is necessarily tied up in her output necessarily. It's just like if you need this effect, we're probably playing her at 1/0, you know, like it's just kind of silly to even do that because I don't think it moves the needle in any sort of direction, right?
She's another card where it's like, I don't think you can make a second one of these. Because imagine if the Kitty Pride decks that did all the Kitty Pride trigger stuff had a second one, it'd be like, okay, well, we can't do this. Like, it's a very interesting design space where as soon as there's 2 options in the design space, something breaks.
Certainly not at one cost. I think that you could do maybe a bigger 2 or 3 or something, but it would have to be pretty impressive.
I think it would have to be a 3. I don't think you could do it at a 2. I think if it's at a 2, we're suddenly looking at like, we'll supplement this with Hope Summers and then it'll just be exactly as stupid as if it was at 1.
That's entirely possible.
Speaking of ones and stupid, Thanos, pretty good right now. This is an extremely powerful card that has some extremely powerful text across all the pieces of cardboard that it generates. What I wanted to dive in on Thanos, though, is one thing it's done really well is be a deck that gets location control for free. And we talked a little bit about Nocturne earlier. They just changed Rhino to not be a location control tool. One of my big beliefs in Marvel Snap is that the design team does not want there to be on rate or free rollable location control. So if there's anything that strikes me as nerfable about Thanos beyond the win rate, which is very high, all the tech cards very high, it's the fact that it flattens or not flattens, it makes more distinct the skill curve in the game. The better you are at evaluating situations, the better Thanos will be for you, and the free location control is a large part of that. Do we ever just like take that away, or do we just do a more direct like send him back to 10 power kind of thing?
Depends. I think some amount of it is pretty fun, but I think that if you did something like draw a card off of stone, you make having access to that a lot less consistent. And maybe that sort of solves the issue. The other option is, I don't know, maybe that stuff is kind of frustrating and maybe people should just have more location control. Like, is that a bad thing? I don't want everyone to be able to like completely free roll it, right? But if you do want access to it, you do feel like, I don't know, agency is your warm fuzzy safety blanket or whatever, or that your deck only loses if this type of location shows up kind of thing, then I feel like players should have access to that is not strictly just like Nocturne, Scarlet Witch, these kind of like middling cards, you know?
I think that it is notable to me that I think Reality Stone is better than either of them. Even though it doesn't draw a card or anything like that, it is better than either of them. And it is something that you get for free as part of a package that is extremely powerful. If you had to do something to Thanos, where would you aim it?
Depends what the problem is. I mean, I think that Thanos being 12 power is just a lot because oftentimes it costs 5 thanks to Time Stone, or maybe you're ramping in some way. And that means that you also have turn 6 to play out another big thing. And 12 is just so much bigger than a lot of other things, where I don't think you would necessarily have that problem if you started at 10. And obviously, if they're doing the Power Stone thing, like, yeah, whatever. He's supposed to be really big. You know, you've done the thing. Congratulations, right? But you could look at lowering the consistency a little bit, because I think that's part of it, where all these cards cycle and you see a big portion of your deck. And so it's not like shuffling a bunch of game objects into your deck at the start is necessarily a huge cost. It's just you have to spend your energy doing a little bit of the stone thing versus maybe doing normal deck stuff, which I don't know, for things like ongoing, it doesn't really bother them that much because a bunch of them happen to have ongoing stuff too. So if you want to nerf the power a little bit, if you want to nerf the consistency a little bit, I'd be down looking at any of those. You have posited just having Thanos not start in your hand. I think that's fine too.
I liked your argument about 10 versus 12, where I think that is a really relevant thing to this card's power, because a lot of playing against Thanos is like, oh, they have only one spot here. What do I have to account for? Mockingbird at 9, I can account for that. Thanos at 12, I can't. And
Yeah.
dropping him there does matter. Moving on to nerf slash buff. Ideally, I think I'd like to focus on cards to buff. But when I look at the current metagame, I don't really see too many problems beyond the general ubiquity of Sam Wilson. So I'll start with him. I think go back to 2-3, take the scaling to +1, call it a day. Like, I think all these decks that play him would still play him. I think everything that he is relevant to that. And I think that the shield stuff is cool, but he doesn't need to be Angela. He can be a lizard or something, you know? It's fine. He can be a lizard level power card with these extra synergies, and that's just good.
What I was talking about with the Kitty stuff definitely does apply to Sam, where it's like Kitty could be a 1/0. If you're playing Elsa, you're playing Hope, that sort of stuff. Like, you're probably just playing Kitty anyway. It doesn't really matter about that one power. And for a lot of Sam's interactions, that is true as well. You could do the 2/3+1 thing. I think that would be fine. It does take away from the Captain America stuff a little bit, but I don't think people are really doing that anymore anyway.
It's mostly fallen off.
Yeah, it's mostly just like, oh, Sam's good on his own. You don't need to play Cap 2. So I think that it's not, oh, every single person would still play him. I think most of them would, though, and therefore that is finally that is a fine nerf. But buffs, I think we're just in a spot where we have like Hood, Kitty, Zabu, and then a lot of the ones may as well just not exist unless you're doing synergy-based stuff. And then the other thing I would look at is giving Destroy a new card, but barring that, probably buffing something from there.
Yeah, I would like to see Deathlock be buffed. I think Deathlock could be like I think 3-5 back in 2022 is the equivalent of like 3-7 now. You know?
Yeah, that was a big stat line. It was a big stat line, and now it's just like cards just get that. Like if Luna Snow gets 3-6, Deathlock should have it absolutely.
Yeah, Deathlock should be at least 3-6, but I would like at least 3-7 it, because I think the other thing about Deathlock is he is, of all the destroy cards, probably the most splashable if his stat line is good. Like, you can splash Deathlock Bucky or something like that. I would like to see people do that more. Like, I think Deathlock could be stronger and should be stronger.
Do you care very much? I mean, I know that 3-7 vanilla you would not even necessarily put in your deck, right? But like, do you care that is effectively what it becomes? Where it's like, I have this on turn 3, I can just play it in a location raw, you know?
That'd be great. Go ahead and do that. I'll do whatever. Yeah, like, cool. If you wanna risk like the things that come with that, like drawing him late and being unable to play him, I think it would be perfectly acceptable for them to make 3-7. You can't play this on the final turn of the game. That could be a card they could just do, and that's sort of what Deathlock ends up playing like a lot of the time.
No, that's true. I mean, you could even still play around it where on the final turn you're playing like 3-2-1 or you have Sarah or whatever, and you just have the
Absolutely.
location open and you're just like, boom, 20 power here. Start with
That's
Deathlock.
fun. Mitigating a downside by smart play makes people
Yeah.
feel smart. That's a cool
Good brain
thing.
chemicals.
Yes. I also wanted to throw out one more buff before we totally lost it. Give Claw that 8th point of power back. Give it back.
Sure. Whatever.
Last up, there is going to be an official second dinner tournament. I will be commentating on that tournament. I believe it'll be later this month. And I just wanted to talk about one of the tie breaks. I know that's a very like specific and nerdy thing to dial in on, but one of the tie breaks, and I pushed against this to try to de-emphasize it, is cubes remaining, or like life total effectively. And I was like, that seems really bad because it punishes people for like scouting or whatever. What I was getting at is, what would the opposite of that be? Because let's say the problem with that is it encourages overly safe gameplay. How do we encourage risky and exciting gameplay? Can we make a tiebreak 8 cubers 1? Like, you played in more tournaments than anyone ever in Marvel Snap has, probably. Like, not Marvel Snap tournaments, but you know what I mean. And what would you do to incentivize risky and exciting plays in a tournament?
Well, first of all, which tiebreaker is this? This can't be
like
first tiebreaker.
It was originally the first tiebreaker. I pushed against it until it got pushed down to not being the first tiebreaker.
Anything past the first tiebreaker, I think, is so minuscule that it usually doesn't really matter, and it's kind of splitting hairs, but certainly should not be the first tiebreaker. I will say that.
That was basically my contention, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a thing given Snap's setup that would encourage that necessarily. It's just like you can't really encourage people to try to go for 8 cubers because your opponent has to opt into that.
Yeah. Could you do... I wonder if you could make a tiebreaker snaps.
Could do that.
That would be one direction to go about it. It's just something I've been kicking around, and it's like I want to. If I were to run one of these, I would want to incentivize that.
Yeah, I certainly don't want all these games to be played for like 1 cube or whatever, and it's just like really boring. Like, oh, this person won like 7-5 or what? It's just like
1 cube, rope entire turn 6, retreat later. Worthless.
Yeah, best of 5, for example, is much better than best of 13 or something.
Yes.
Let's try and do that.
And in addition, though, as someone who has vast tournament experience, what advice would you have for anyone preparing for this tournament?
So much. Ultimately, I would start with the thing that I think held me back for decades, basically. And that was thinking that you needed to like break a format in order to have an edge against people. It's like, no, just do the powerful thing, whatever you think that is. Yes, people are going to come for you, but they also have to prepare for everyone else. And you know that there are going to be plenty of people kind of in the shoes that ideally you were formerly in, where they're like, oh, I got to play something that's like off meta and play something that, you know, is going to take people by surprise or whatever, when in reality, the equity for doing something like that is generally far lower than, just doing the consistent, powerful, good thing. And people just talk themselves into all sorts of silly things when it comes to an official thing. Like for playing on ladder, it's like, yeah, you can tell yourself whatever you want to, in terms of like, I'm going to play one game with this for XYZ reason. You can always bounce off of it, but tournament's more of a commitment, and you just end up being like, oh, well, to do well in this very long tournament, I got to be playing Living Tribunal. And it's just like, dude, shut up. If you heard about the card Thanos, you know, like, how do you expect people to beat you a bunch if you're playing Thanos and playing it well?
Well, no guarantees of the second, of course.
Never.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of 8 Cubes. Thank you so much to Gerry Thompson for filling in on short notice after I spent 18 hours moving. And of
I don't have a choice. I'm locked in his basement. Send help.